Listen, you smell something?
Human emotions are materializing in the form of a viscous psychoreactive plasm with explosive supernormal potential.
What a discovery, a psychoreactive substance.
Do you know what this equipment is used for?
Boggle or Super Mario Brothers?
We'll have fun!
Yeah! They're still doing it. Really quite good work there.
My friend, don't be a jerk.
We've got no choice. Call the Ghostbusters.
Super Jackpot!
Welcome to Extraplasm Podcast. It's the only podcast on the internet that wants to build a Ghostbusters Firehouse set in its backyard and then claim to the city that it's an accessory dwelling unit. I'm your host, Jim Aritato, aka Vank Maniac on the internet, and I'm thrilled to be bringing you episode 81 of the show. This week, we're joined by Luke Whitelock, art director on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and the brains behind the Ghostbusters Firehouse set. Luke is an accomplished art director and set designer with over 20 years of experience, and he's worked on Marvel movies like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and Age of Ultron. He's worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, as well as 2022's The Batman, and live-action Disney films like Beauty and the Beast and Cruella. He also runs an online curriculum of courses and training assets via his website and company Whitelock Design Limited, with the goal of helping teach newcomers to the industry how to use digital design and 3D modeling tools for set and prop design. And so I have to be honest with you, as a Firehouse geek who has wanted to talk to whoever figured out how to squeeze LA's Engine 23 inside of NYC's Hook and Ladder 8 for many months, I am beyond excited to bring you this conversation with Luke because he's the guy. And so I'm really excited to have somebody come on the show who has such a wealth of knowledge, who's worked in the industry for so long, but who also is a massive Ghostbusters fan and for whom working on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was a true dream. And so Luke has so many great stories to share with us this week, and I'm excited, to bring that to you. If you were wondering if Extraplasm dropped off the face of the earth last week, fear not. I simply took the week off as it was my birthday weekend, and I had plans that would have conflicted with episode production. So we took a break, but, we're back this week. Luke is with us, and I want to give him an extra thanks because he stayed late on an 8-hour time difference with me. I'm in LA and he's in London, and he stayed late at work until security showed up to ask him why he was still there. And then he stayed even later to show me really cool visuals and things from his model until his wife called him home. And so if you're listening, thank you so much for coming on the show and being so generous and gracious with your time. And I'm so stoked that I get to share this conversation with everybody this week. And Extraplasm is still here and still going strong. We're not going anywhere just because I took the week off. We've got another amazing guest joining us to share stories from a Frozen Empire film set next week. You'll have to tune in to figure out if it's Bill Murray or not, but here's a hint. It's not. But it is somebody who I'm excited to bring and share a conversation with you for next week, who I've wanted to talk to also for many, many months. So we're going to get to that conversation with Luke in a few moments, and it's truly a great one. But before we need to get caught up on some Ghostbusters headlines, including some that happened while I was away last week.
Still making headlines all across the country, the Ghostbusters are at it again.
Today, the entire eastern seaboard is alive with talk of incidents of paranormal activity.
Call-in topic today, ghosts and ghost busting.
Extraplasm, read all about it. Ghostbusters headlines coming at ya.
Let's talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire news for a few moments. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is about to reach 107 or close to $110 million at the domestic box office at this point. The most recent weekend takes illustrated that it has now reached a $107 million domestic box office take, and its global total is projected to be $188 million. That means we're pretty close to getting the $200 million. And it's kind of interesting to think about this, but if you look at what was in theaters last weekend, like Challengers came out, and that's the weird tennis movie with Zendaya involved in a love triangle or something based on the trailer. Although people keep telling me that's not what it is, but I don't know. It's probably not a thing I'm going to see in the theaters. And there's been some other action movies and things that have come out in the last few weeks, especially I don't know what the deal is, but there's tons of movies involving apes out there right now and war. But if you look at the number of movies that are out in theaters right now, the vast majority of them, for some strange reason, are all R-rated movies. There's a ton of R-rated stuff, a couple of PG-13 movies, including Frozen Empire, and then holdovers like Kung Fu Panda 4 and Dune Part 2 that are still out there. That there's not really a lot of family appeal stuff right now, or stuff that sort of is general, not want to say generic, but I mean general moviegoer fare. Instead, there's a lot of hard R stuff in theaters at the moment all at once. And so if you were to think about, how families going to the movies might pick something they wanted to see just because they want to get out of the house. Right now, like Frozen Empire is actually the thing that would make the most sense to take anybody to see, despite being in its 6th weekend of release and heading into its 7th. And that's why it finished just this past weekend with over $3 million in additional domestic earnings, which is kind of wild. So it's kind of strange to consider this, that as we are now like 6 weeks out, the movie is still earning several $million a weekend. It's probably going to cross that $200 million weekend, or $200 million amount, you know, for like how its total take relatively soon if it hasn't already. At which point, anybody who is concerned about the fact that the movie cost $100 million to make with marketing and was totally going to be, you know, the end of Ghostbusters might actually be able to eat some crow. We can say that it made twice what it cost. We'll see. But like, I think it's kind of interesting to consider this, that like there's this unknown factor at this point where like everybody thinks that each weekend will be the same and that each weekend another movie will one up the one before it. But in this case, like, you know, the big box office earner that was premiering was Challengers, and it came in at $15 million, which, you know, is basically in consideration of other things out there is very little in terms of box office take. In contrast, if you think about it from that standpoint, the $3 million that Frozen Empire earned is like, what, 1/5 of that in terms of the amount of money? Someone don't email me and correct my math if I'm wrong about that. But the point is here that Frozen Empire is still earning money. It's probably going to be in theaters for a few more weeks, if, you know, not like maybe a couple more, whatever. And then we'll see what it does on home theater in terms of Blu-rays and streaming, etc. So stay tuned. We're going to still see what Frozen Empire stands to earn. But from my standpoint, I think this is pretty good that we're still seeing, you know, several $1 million of box office earnings 6 weeks out from the release date. And what's with all the R movies? Like who was doing all the strategizing? What's going on there? I'm not really sure, but it's kind of interesting to consider. In Ghostbusters theme park news, if that's a thing now, we heard previously from Ghostbusters News a while back, although I don't know that I reported on it, that there was potentially going to be some sort of attraction at Universal Orlando. And I've heard like rumors kicking around that, or allegedly Universal bought an Ecto-1 that essentially, or not an Ecto-1, but rather a 59mm meteor that was apparently used as a marketing display somewhere for a business down south. I don't really know, but what we do now know is that Ghostbusters is returning to Universal Studios Florida in Orlando, and it will be returning, at least in its initial capacity, as part of the Universal Mega Movie Parade that's set to debut on July 3rd. They described this over at Universal via a press release saying the waters of the Universal Studios Florida Lagoon will come to life with all new nighttime show, a sensational, a symphonic spectacular. The exhilarating new show will celebrate the emotional power of music by leveraging the iconic scores and scenes from blockbuster films that have inspired Universal Orlando's past, present, and future attractions, including Warner Brothers Pictures' Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts films, Jurassic World, Jaws, Shrek, Ghostbusters, Trolls, Back to the Future, Universal Monsters, Transformers, How to Train Your Dragon, E.T., Fast and the Furious, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Minions, the Mummy, and King Kong. And to be clear, when they say the Super Mario Brothers movie, I really hope they mean like the one from 1993 and that there's like some really weird dinosaur themed thing they're going to have, but it's probably not that. They probably mean Super Mario Brothers. But I digress. My point here is that they have essentially said they'll be doing the largest daytime parade they've ever had. That's going to have 13 floats and 100 performers, and will pay tribute to all these different films that at some point had attractions on their, their theme park lot. And the big thing that they've said about Ghostbusters so far is that they've confirmed that there will be a towering, as Jason Fitzsimmons put it, 16-foot Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And so that's kind of going to be awesome to see that rolling down the street in the middle of the day. I gotta admit, I kind of want to see that. But beyond that, it's likely that there's going to be some exclusive merchandise to celebrate this event and celebrate what's going on within Universal. And it's been rumored for quite some time that there might be a new tribute room or tribute store thing going on at the different stores at Universal's theme park. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted as we find out. But if you're planning a trip to Florida this summer and you're going in July, make sure you stop by Universal Studios and check out the Sensational Symphonic Spectacular Tour. It's not really a tour, it's a parade, but check it out either way. In Ghostbusters comics news, if you don't know this already, issue 2 of Ghostbusters Back in Town by writer and recent Extraplasm guest David Booher is now available in stores. Issue 2 really begins to dig into the Ghostbusters' new careers in New York City as paranormal investigators, whereas issue 1 kind of delved most into them moving into the firehouse. And it introduces a new giant ghostly bird villain, depicted not only inside the book, but also on its cover in pretty cool fashion. So without spoiling anything else for you, I will tell you that if you want to see a preview of the issue, you can check out Ghostbusters News. And if you want to read it, you can go get it at your local comic book store or digitally at digital.darkhorse.com for $3.99 US. So you can get that now digitally if you don't want to leave the house, or you can go support a local retailer at your local comic book store and grab it from them. In Ghostbusters video game news, since we last chatted, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed players have completed 2 more community milestones, meaning that 2 more fun new things have been added to that game. This means if you're a fan of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, its producer Ilphonic has placed 2 new items in your locker for character customization, including a new pink camouflage flight suit that I didn't know I needed, but okay, and a Raise the Cult t-shirt from Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is awesome. You can access these new items immediately in the character customization menu that you access through the locker in your firehouse if you're playing this game. And if you're a person not playing this game, you're like, wait, you get your own firehouse? Yeah, totally. It's awesome. You should totally play this game. Why aren't you? What will we see next from Ilphonic? Well, given the DLC roadmap that was laid out for us last month, we know we should expect to see potentially 3 different Slimer skins that are coming for this game, including variants from Frozen Empire, the classic 1984 movie, and the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and some Twitch drops as well. And we should probably expect those sometime around the 40th anniversary as the 3 Slimer skins sort of celebrate his appearance across the 40 years of Ghostbusters. So maybe around Ghostbusters Day we'll see this, who knows, but I'll keep you posted as we find out. And beyond that, when you look at fall, the roadmap actually teases reports of quote unquote double trouble at the SCY courthouse level, suggesting we might get a pair of new ghosts. Anyone thinking Scoleri Brothers? Because I am. And then finally, there will be a special ghost reveal and new gear and cosmetic options coming out in fall and winter. So if you're a Spirits Unleashed player, like, you actually have a lot to look forward to this year, and so much of the sort of like balancing and bug fixing and things that I used to complain about, like way back at the beginning of Extraplasm, they're fixed, and it's great. And I love playing this game. It's so much fun. And you have a ton to look forward this year as a Spirits Unleashed player. If you're not a Spirits Unleashed player, you should really fix that, especially because you can do it really cheaply at this point because the game is always on discount somewhere. So keep this in mind. Spirits Unleashed is still out there, and there's still more DLC coming. We're going to see more of it coming probably next month. And if you're a fan of the game who's playing now, you've got 2 new different things you can dress your Ghostbuster in as of right now. Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord players just received an update that adds Ray Stantz as a playable character, and that lets the players put on the Proton Pack based off the 84 movie. These were things that I believe were not necessarily brand new things because they were part of the storyline update, but now, as Ghostbusters News reports, you can simply log into the game and choose Ray as your character, as opposed to him being like an NPC in the game who you would interact with. So this is pretty cool if you have that game. I admittedly don't, because it requires you to have a meta quest. I don't have one, although Jason Fitzsimmons at Ghostbusters News repeatedly tells me that I should buy one so that we can either play that game together or apparently hang out in virtual renders of a Little Caesars inside of a 1990s Kmart, which is apparently a thing you can do on MetaQuest. I had no idea until he told me. But maybe you can find him in one. I don't know. But the point is that if you're a fan of the MetaQuest, and if you're a fan of Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, there is a new content pack that lets you suit up as Ray Stantz and lets you use the gear from potentially, your favorite and the best Ghostbusters movie. So be aware of that. And if you haven't played that yet, like, I did get a chance to try it. Shout out to friend of the show, JD Raymer, who at one point let me use his MetaQuest to check it out. It is a pretty cool thing, I have to say. It's pretty neat, but I don't have one. So if anybody's listening out there wants to somehow get me a MetaQuest, I'm happy to talk about it. Just saying. In Ghostbusters merch news, there is some really cool news that's come out over the past weekend, and that's coming out of C2E2, where Mondo has teased an upcoming line of action figures or rather fully articulated figures based on real Ghostbusters property stuff. This is really cool. And the reason I say fully articulated figures is because that's the phrase that they're using in marketing this. I find this kind of fascinating because, of course, there is a master toy license that Hasbro has, and you would think that that might prevent Mondo from producing 6.5-inch figures that have full articulation and accessories. But I don't know. I don't know how any of this works at a licensing level. I imagine that perhaps Mondo's figures are higher echelon or more collector based and more adult based than toys, and so they get to do this. Either way, I'm really happy about it because I have wanted us to get like updated real Ghostbusters figures that look like those from the cartoon rather than just the Kenner Classics for quite some time. And when Chronicle had showed off figurines they were planning back in 2019 at Ghostbusters Fan Fest, I was totally excited to throw money at those. And then Chronicle totally went out of business, and we never saw those things again. But what we may be getting here at this point are several 2-packs of fully articulated figures at 6.5-inch scale that are going to come out. We're going to get more information about them in probably San Diego Comic-Con is when that's been teased to us at C2E2 as to when they would have more to announce about it. As to what these are going to look like, I want to direct you to Ghostbusters News and Jason's coverage on this because what people may not be aware of is that last year around Halloween, a Mondo artist named Alex Brewer shared a fan project, like a thing he just decided to do because he's a fan of Ghostbusters. It wasn't as if Mondo had the license or anything. And he essentially made 3D sculpts of several of the Ghostbusters and adaptations, like Fright features Egon Spengler. He made a Sam Hain figure, all kinds of cool stuff that he just kind of made renderings of. And then he put those out on social media. And the response to that was, of course, from us overwhelmingly positively. And people were like screaming, "Take my money." So apparently, I don't know if these are going to be the things that Mondo sells, but it seems like there's a relationship between a Mondo artist who began making these as a fan project and teasing them out there, and then Mondo deciding to put a line into production. So if you want to get a grasp of what an artist at Mondo offered up as a fan project back in October, you can see that as well over at Ghostbusters News by looking at Jason's coverage. To be clear, they are not renderings of the product being sold. We don't know what those are going to look like, but it may be something inspired by this given the relationship between the artist and the company making and now releasing the product as a licensed affair. This is pretty cool. They're probably going to be a little pricey. Let's be real. Mondo figures run kind of expensively, but they can run sometimes between $125 up to $400 for a multi-pack of figures that are really detailed. We'll see what they're going to cost, but I will say that I would like to get a set of highly, of good collector grade figurines or something along those lines of real Ghostbusters. I would have spent the money on the Chronicle figures. To have fully articulated things of that nature that are highly detailed and awesome is even better. So I can't wait to see these at San Diego Comic-Con, and who knows, maybe we'll get to see a tease of them before that at Ghostbusters Day. And just almost a month away from now is when we hit the 40th anniversary. And speaking of things that are coming out for the 40th anniversary and that are in kind of similar price scale, Star Ace has previewed their upcoming 1/8 scale Ghostbusters statues of Winston Zeddemore and Peter Venkman. You can go and take a look at those over at Ghostbusters News for sure, where Jason's got the previews of those. And he previously showed off the Ray Stantz and Egon Spengler figures that they are putting out. Again, these are not posable, so they don't move, but they are pretty cool, despite the fact they're not articulated. And they essentially are callbacks to the original Ghostbusters movie that are highly detailed, hand-painted figures that have an MSRP of about $250 a piece. So we've talked about these already. Star Ace already has, as we know, when we've talked about a Slimer figure out, a Stay Puft figure out, a Terror Dog. So at this point, like by the end of the year, Star Ace is going to essentially have covered pretty much everything except Louis Tully and Dana Barrett and maybe Walter Peck from the first movie. I'd be interested to see if they find this to be successful, if maybe they decide to throw us a few ghosts. That would be cool. But, I digress. The point here is that if you want to take a look at those figures, you can go and take a look at those now over on Ghostbusters News. Let's talk about Hasbro for a few moments. In a recent post to the Ghostbusters Reddit page, it's become apparent that Hasbro intends to put out a video updating folks about the progress on the HasLab 2-in-a-Box project. If you don't recall what that is, that was the HasLab that many of us backed at the end of 2023 that would get you your hands on a ghost trap that was functional, as well as a Ghostbusters PKE meter that was, relatively screen accurate. So apparently Emily Bader, who is the brand marketing manager for Hasbro Global, has essentially put out a Reddit post in which she says, "Hello, wonderful HasLab backers and other curious humans of the Ghostbusters subreddit. We're getting ready to film our first update video for the 2-in-the-Box HasLab, and we wanted to check in with everyone to see what you'd most like to see in the video. What kind of pressing questions do you have about the project? What are you hoping to see demos of? What would you like to see an update on? We want to make sure this video addresses things that you're curious about and would like to see. We appreciate the continued support, and I'm excited to share all the hard work the development team has been doing over the last 5 months. Thank you, Emily." So this is interesting. If you want to find out, more about this project in terms of what's going on and you have specific questions, you're going to need to go over to the, www.reddit.com/r/Ghostbusters and go make replies to this post over on Reddit. I do find this really weird and fascinating that Hasbro decides that the key place to engage the fandom is apparently on its Reddit page. I'm not really sure why that is, given that they know exactly who bought this. And so if they wanted to send an email out with a survey that said, "Hi, HasLab backers who we actually know paid for it and would like to reach, what would you like to know about in this video update we're going to put out?" rather than messaging Reddit as a convenience sample. But I'll keep my criticality down for the moment. Would like to see some updates about this. But, it is kind of an interesting thing. I do question to what extent the Ghostbusters Reddit page is a indicative cross-section of who wants what in the fandom. But if this is something that you want to be able to get some more insight on, and you have specific questions you want to ask, apparently that is the place to do it. Reddit.com/r/Ghostbusters, where you can make a reply to Emily Bader's post. So feel free to do that. If you can't find that post easily, you can go over to Ghostbusters News and click on the link in Jason's coverage. Will take you straight there. Some final items here on Ghostbusters merch. Mini tubs are now available via Just Geek for pre-order. If you're not sure what those are, you may remember that tubs exist and that those are ducks that come in bathtubs that wear Ghostbusters costumes, as it's been explained to me, rather than Ghostbusters that are ducks. So there's apparently 2-inch tall figures. They are 50% the size of normal tubs ducks. There are 5 of them out right now. 4 of them are dressed as Ghostbusters. 1 of them is dressed as Slimer. These are really not any different than what they already sell from tubs in the full-size 4-inch figures, except that these are 2 inches tall. If you're interested in these, if this is something that you collect and you're into, JustGeek.com is taking pre-orders of these for $8.09 each, which is apparently 10% off. So go ahead and check that out if that's something that interests you. I admittedly am dialing down on how many vinyl figurines I collect because there's just no more room at this particular inn. And there's other things that I want, like Mondo figures. But if you are a person who's into Safubi and vinyl toys and things, then they may be a thing that's, right up your alley. Pop Culture Coffee Company is going to be the edible merchandise thing of the week. There's apparently several new flavors of cold brew coming from Pop Culture Coffee Company. And we've talked previously about the Ecto Espresso and Puffed Mellow beans that they were putting out. Well, Ecto Espresso also exists as cold brew cans. And now, as part of a limited time offer, there will be 2 new flavors of cold brew called Death Chill and Private Stash, which is a Raise a Cult themed coffee. Both of these launch next week on May 7th over at popculturecoffee.com. Here's the deal. Extraplasm doesn't have promo codes for things because, look, we're just not that cool. But Jason Fitzsimmons at Ghostbusters News does. So if you want to save 20% off on your order and you want to help Jason get some referrals, use the code GBNews20 to save 20% off your order. And he's going to be doing a taste test video on these, of course, because of course he is. And I can't wait to watch it and enjoy it. I may have to get some of this because I'm a coffee fanatic and I'm not usually into coffee that's sweetened. I like to drink my coffee black. And I've noticed that these definitely have some flavorings to them, but they're also coffee. They're also Ghostbusters, and I'm a cold brew nut who brews his own. So I may have to make an order, and I'm going to probably use the promo code GBNews20 when I do it. You should. I'm gonna. Okay. So let's talk about a final thing here in terms of Ghostbusters news, headlines, things. Usually this is the part of the show where I would tell you that you should go and look at some compelling thing that's interesting and fun and is kind of like eye candy for you. This week instead, I want to tell you what you should start getting excited about if you're going to be around New York City in June. Because the Buffalo Ghostbusters have been like basically putting out all kinds of announcements over the last week or two of all the things that are happening down at the Firehouse on June 8th for Ghostbusters Day and the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters. If you are not familiar with this already, although you should be, because how many times have the Buffalo Ghostbusters been on Extraplasm to talk about things like this? They will be hosting the Ghostbusters Day event down at Hook and Ladder 8 that is a charity event and fundraises. This year, they are helping and benefiting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation that was founded in tribute to New York Fire Department firefighter Stephen Siller, who was unfortunately killed during the September 11th attacks. This is a foundation that helps families who lost their loved ones on September 11th, and it helps first responders and veterans rebuild. So they will be taking donations in a variety of ways for this event. And some of the ways that you'll be able to donate while getting some really cool Ghostbusters experiences are that Joe Cirillo, who plays the pencil neck cop from the 1984 movie, all better known as the police captain, is going to be back and visiting again with fans and signing autographs for $30 each. And joining him this year is John Rothman, who you just saw as the library administrator in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and was in Ghostbusters, the original movie, of course, as well. And so you will be able to get signatures from both of them at this event for $30 each, and all your proceeds will go to that foundation to benefit fallen firefighters of 9/11, etc. The Olesi brothers, who performed Saving the Day, will be returning this year. They were at Ghostbusters Day last year, and it was kind of a huge kick that everybody got to see the Olesi brothers playing that song live. They're apparently bringing back, they're coming back, and they're bringing their band, if I'm not mistaken, this time around. So it's going to be an even bigger performance. And there's like so much other cool stuff that's been announced so far. And we're still a month out where we may find out there's more things the Buffalo Ghostbusters are going to announce to us. If they do, here's the good news. They have been let back on Facebook. You can go follow Buffalo again on Facebook and Instagram to know what's going on. And some of the things you might find out about from the last 24 hours include that the NYC Ghostbusters are going to be hosting their 10th anniversary of their annual Ghostbusters film location walking tour. Following the main Ghostbusters Day event at Hook and Ladder 8. So it's going to start at like 2:00 in the afternoon on Ghostbusters Day on June 8th. And we'll go and tour different places around the city. That's a tour that's led by officially licensed New York City tour guides who are also members of the Ghostbusters, or rather the NYC Ghostbusters. And if you're nice to Ryan, who's going to be running that, I'm sure he'll probably also get you really good pizza, because he definitely got me some, which was great. So you should definitely check that out if you're going to be in the area. And finally, a really cool thing, if you're not going to be there, but you just want to support the event and you want to support the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters, there is a new patch that Buffalo is going to be selling as part of their celebration of Ghostbusters Day that features Moogly, and he's holding a slimy 40th logo. This is a patch that was also designed by our friend Eric Christensen over at the Moogly Fan Club, who does great work designing patches. Those patches are running $12 shipped in the United States or $13 shipped international. They measure at 5.5 inches wide by 4.15 inches tall. You can see great pictures of them over on the Buffalo Ghostbusters Facebook page, along with all this other stuff. And if you want to order, you can order via PayPal at info@buffaloghostbusters.com or via Venmo at Buffalo Gbusters. And really important note here, make sure you include your address in the notes of your order so they know where to send it. But orders are going to be accepted while supplies last on this. They're in hand and ready to ship now. So if you want to get another patch and you want something that's going to celebrate the 40th anniversary while supporting firefighters, that option is there for you. So feel free to check that out. Go over and follow Buffalo Ghostbusters to get more details on this. And make sure that when you do, you go and check their events, because you're going to find the event page where all the stuff is being, sort of publicized as well. And I want to say a big shout out and thank you to Buffalo, to NYC, to, folks from the neighboring franchises that come out and support this, like Hudson Valley and Long Island and others. I don't mean to marginalize anybody by not naming you. I'm just currently listing off people who I know. But realistically, everybody who comes out and supports this event at Hook and Ladder 8 every year does amazing work, and it really benefits and helps the firefighters. So if you want to help support it, you can get a patch. You can come on out and enjoy it. Will I be there? I'm sure that's a question I'm going to be asked in the next week. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. There's some things going on in my life that may actually dictate that I need to go east at the same time as this is happening, but I'm not quite sure. So I will keep you posted if I am. But for now, regardless of whether or not I end up going to Ghostbusters Day at the Firehouse in New York City, you should go. All right, so that wraps up our headlines for this week. Let's jump now into my conversation with Luke Whitelock as we dig into some of his awesome experiences working on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Joining me on Extraplasm podcast, a man who is the foremost authority in building firehouses, far more so than any of us who've ever constructed one out of Legos or Playmobil. A person who helped to bring an amazing set from Frozen Empire to life, and who I'm so excited to talk with. Luke Whitelock, art director of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, is joining us today. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk with you. I mentioned this to you a while back in a few messages, back in Instagram, that I have had a deep affinity for the LA Firehouse for a long time. Like the fourth episode of this podcast is like a solo episode where I don't have a guest, and it's like an hour of me just talking about the history of Engine 23. And at the time I put that episode out, I said, I really want to know how it is that they're going to take this firehouse and fit it inside Hook and Ladder 8. And I'm just hopefully someday I'll get to talk to the person who did that. Like today, you and I are manifesting that. So thank you for joining the podcast.
No worries.
It's so lovely to have you here. And I'm so excited to be able to chat with you about sort of how that set came together, your work on Frozen Empire. You have a great catalog of stuff you've worked on in the past as an assistant art director and an art director. You've worked on Marvel films, you've worked on all kinds of stuff. And so it was really cool to sort of see that, you worked on this film, that you brought a lot of that experience with you. Like, how did you get involved with this project? Like, what was your relationship with Ghostbusters prior to coming on to Frozen Empire, and how did you get involved in it?
Well, it's a funny story. I am a huge Ghostbusters fan. So I'm not just saying that because I worked on the movie, but it honestly is like, for me, it is it's my Star Wars, like that kind of fandom side of things. Like everyone when I'm growing up loves Star Wars. I like Star Wars. I'm not into it as much as I love Ghostbusters. Like it was always my go-to thing, movie, and seen it 100 million times and quote the thing daily for my entire life and blah, 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 typical fandom type stuff. And then I went to see Afterlife with a friend of mine who's also an art director. And we went to see Afterlife together, and it's really weird because we were watching the end credits, the bit where they go back and Winston goes back to the firehouse and they open it up, and we were in the theater and we were like, oh, that'd be so good. I said, and we both looked at each other and said, wouldn't it be great if they did a Ghostbusters movie here? That would never happen, sort of thing. But like most things, a lot of American movies are made in the UK. So it's not as far-fetched as you'd think. Anyway, cut to several months later, I was working on a show for Netflix called Back in Action. It's not been released yet. And I was on that full time. And weirdly, someone said in passing, oh, they're making a Ghostbusters movie. And I sort of ears pricked up. I said, well, who's making it? What do you know? And they were, oh, I just heard that there was a Ghostbuster movie coming here. So I got on the phone to my friend Andrew, who went to see Afterlife with. I said, Andrew, we've got to get on this Ghostbusters movie. Have you and he said, oh, I'm already on it. I'm already phoning around trying to find out who's doing it. And anyway, we just kept hitting brick walls. Nobody knew who was doing it. It was very secretive. We checked all the major studios, because we have, being freelance, we have sort of contacts in all the studios, and phoning all the people we know, like, is Ghostbusters coming in? What could be the code name for it? Is it this? Is it that? Nobody knew. Nothing. Anyway, very dejected. I sort of went out for lunch with a friend of mine who was on Back in Action. And we were just chatting, and I said to him, oh, I've been trying to find out who's doing this Ghostbusters movie, but it's impossible. And he turned around and he said, oh, Darren's doing it. Oh, Darren who? And it was Darren McLaughlin, who was the supervising art director. So supervising art directors they sort of run the art department, and they hire the art directors and stuff like that. Now, I've not heard of Darren before, and I hadn't met him. So I said to him, have you got his number? Have you got and rushed out, phoned him straight away. I said, look, my name's Luke. I'm an art director. I'm really interested in doing Ghostbusters. He said, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm fully crewed. I was like, no. And he said, well, why don't you send me a CV anyway? And, if something comes up, we'll give you a call. And I was like, oh, fine. So I sent him a CV, and without sounding, too big-headed, it's quite a good CV with all the Marvel stuff that I've got on there. And he phoned me back like immediately, and he was like, I've just looked at your CV. Can you meet me like now? And I said, yeah. So we met at a pub down the road from the studio. I sort of sneaked out of work to go and meet him. And he was like, I've got to get you on the job. Can you start like next week? And I was on, I've never left a job before. So I had to go back to my boss and say, I'm leaving to go and do Ghostbusters, which didn't go down very well. But that's another story for another day. But while I was in the meeting in the pub with Darren, he said to me, I think it'd be great if you could manage the Firehouse sets for us. And my insides just went, it's like, oh my God. It's like the best. It's like being asked to do the Millennium Falcon or something like that. It's like that level of like iconography. And, and when I started the job, it was always going to be the full Firehouse. There was like, we were doing the basement, the ground floor, the upper floors of the attic, the rooftop, the street outside. It was like a huge undertaking from an art department point of view, and there was no time. I mean, you may have seen Gil's interviews that he's done with YHS podcast, where he talks about how tight the schedule was. It was unbelievably tight. So I started on Firehouse as it was then. I think it was the 5th of December 22, and that gave me 3 weeks to do the most of the drawings for the Firehouse. So the ground floor plans and elevations, and the second and third floor, or the first and second floors, we call it over here.
Wait, do you pull that together in 3 weeks?
Yeah. so hear me out. So I basically, I knew that there's no way we could have done that. And in the UK, in the film industry in the UK, we shut down over Christmas for 2 weeks. And much to the annoyance of my wife, I sort of turned to her and I said, look, I'm not going to get paid for this, and I'm not doing it for any other reason than I know if I don't do this over Christmas, the Christmas break, we won't have the drawings. It won't, there's so much work to do. So I just basically for 2 weeks over Christmas smashed out the extra 2 weeks that I got for, over the Christmas break. I smashed out the plans and elevations for those 3 floors. And so when we came back in January, they were expecting like a few more weeks of drawing, and I'd already done like the lion's share of the plans and elevations. So they were really happy. And then I got introduced to Eric Reich. Eric Reich came over, and executive producer, and he's like, he's Mr. Ghostbusters. I think I just kind of ended up hitting it off with most of them, because they could see that I was really into the Firehouse, into Ghostbusters. And I think they all really just ended up just trusting me with the process. So my boss, the designer, was Eve Stewart, fantastic designer. And she just let me run with it, really. She could see that I knew everything about the Firehouse. There was no point ever trying to deviate. So it always came back in meetings to, well, ask Luke. Luke knows. It was like, can we put a window here? And I'd be like, no, there's no window there in the Firehouse. Or can we move the poles? No, the poles have to stay where they are. It was all those sorts of things. Right. So I was kind of like the oracle of Ghostbusters for the art department when it came to it. Much to the annoyance of some of the people in the art department, because they, would, I would have to tell them, no, that's not Ghostbustery or whatever,
I have an appreciation for this. Like when I was in New York for the premiere, one of my key questions I needed answered when I went down to the Firehouse in New York is I wanted to know whether or not the Firehouse does or does not have a chimney, because
Oh yeah,
because like there isn't a chimney on Hook and Ladder 8. There's definitely not one, and I didn't think there was. But if you look at the original movie, you have that wood stove that exists up on the third floor where you've added the stairs essentially in the new set, right? And then you've got, if you look at the Department 56 sculpture of the firehouse, it absolutely has a chimney on the back of it. And so when I met the firefighters at Hook and Ladder 8, like one of my first questions was like, can you just resolve this dumb thing for me? And they're like, what? I'm like, you guys don't have a chimney, do you? And like, no, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay. Like, so I appreciate that you were there to sort of be like, look, this is or isn't, something you could realistically pull off,
Well, it's really hard as well because like you have to, like with the thing with this set, which was really fun in as well because like it's never been seen together. Like you're either exterior or you're interior, and you never see the two together. Apart from, I think in Ghostbusters 2, when Lewis comes running out after the guys and he's waving papers and stuff, and you just catch a glimpse through the door at Hook and Ladder 8, and you can see it's not the LA Firehouse, obviously, because they're in New York. So having grown up with the films, knowing the layout of the firehouse as it is in the films. And then trying to shoehorn what into an established footprint of the New York Firehouse, really tough because I really didn't want to put that staircase where it was. I wanted to do it facing the other way, so that it was off screen.
Right.
If you went up the stairs the other way, you'd end up going into what would have been Trevor's bedroom, and Gil was. And my original design was it was that way around because I wanted to put the stove in and everything else. And but they really wanted the stairs to go that way for action because they the directors and the producers, they all have their own ideas about the storyboards and how each scene plays out, and they block it in their heads for months and months and months. So they have a very narrow focus on exactly what they want. And what they don't need is me coming in and saying, but I'm a huge fan and it shouldn't be like that. There's a bit of compromise that has to happen.
Wait, you're not telling me that happens, right? Because I can't imagine that's even happened to you, that you have potentially put things on the internet and said, here's how we put them together. And then really nerdy people on the internet have come along to you and gone, that's not canon. And then I sit back and see those posts on social media and I laugh and I go, it is canon because Luke said so. That's
Exactly. Well, I like to think I've got that authority now.
Right. Hey, it's on screen. It's canon.
Yeah. So, I compromised on the stairs, putting the stairs in that way. And I thought, well, it's 40 years later. We could say that they've renovated in between. And or 36 years later or whatever it was. And we could say it's been renovated so that, there's all that sort of stuff. But then when people moan at me for this, which believe me, I've had plenty of DMs on my Instagram about, why have you put a staircase there? So that's fine. But I always say to people, well, if you look at Hook and Ladder and you look down the right-hand side of it, there's a door and there's several windows at ground floor level, and they don't exist in the interior set. Mm-hmm. So that's a bone of contention as well, because if you look at the original movie, when they first go to the firehouse, there's an establishing shot, and they've put in front of the door that's on the side of the firehouse, they've put a load of dust carts and trash bags, to hide the door. And so to give us some grace, we blocked our door up. So we did what's called a blind arch. So you have the return for the door, but the blockwork continues inside the return.
Okay.
Because we were trying to copy what they did in the first movie, but there's no consistency between Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 with the front of the firehouse, because in Ghostbusters 1 they cover up the entirety of the facade where it says Hook and Ladder, and you've got the little discs with the stars. It's completely covered. And then in Ghostbusters 2, it's only the Hook and Ladder that's covered, and then the stars are there. And then in this one, we couldn't put the stars on. We could put the discs, but we couldn't put the stars on because there's something to do with the building itself. You can't show it verbatim, sort of thing, because of some law or whatever. But because we're not allowed to show the hook and ladder symbol,
right?
Title, sign, whatever you want to call it.
Probably because it's like an actual title from the FDNY, and so
exactly, yeah. So because it's an official working firehouse, there's for those reasons you can't show things like that. But there's lots of little discrepancies like that, which are all over the place. So I thought, there are discrepancies, but going forwards, if there are more movies and things like that, it'll be good to lock everything down on this one. And we can say, like, this is it now. This is how it works. Because the other thing, the LA Firehouse, and you probably know this already, is 168 feet long.
Right.
And Hook and Ladder is only 98 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
So straight away, you can't fit it inside. They're exactly the same width, but they're not the same length.
That was my TARDIS question, right? Like that was initially when I saw that you all were doing this and building a set. I was like, how are you going to pull off this TARDIS effect? And I thought it was funny because, like, to me, like, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. And so, like, the TARDIS has the same thing going on when the Firehouse does for the entirety of the run of Doctor Who, right? And that they are two different sets. There's an exterior of the box, of the phone box, and there's an interior set of the phone box, and you don't ever really see them contiguously move from one to the other. You occasionally see the Doctor come out of the box, but you don't ever really see a shot looking in, and if you do, it's entirely CG. It's never practical. And so I was fascinated the first time I really had my mind blown by the fact that you all were doing what you were doing was when McKenna Grace put out the social media video that she had out of her lip singing. And she's lip syncing coming out of the firehouse, and she comes out of the firehouse onto the New York street. And I just like lost my mind and began sending it to people going, they did it. They figured out how to make it such that you could have a contiguous shot from inside the firehouse to outside the firehouse. And holy crap, we just saw that for the first time in a social media video, like that was just like, hey, let's put this out. And it blew my mind. But like what you just said is why, because as somebody who has looked into the history of that firehouse, I know that it is as long as the block is. The firehouse literally extends in LA from one street all the way to the street behind it because it was designed as two garage bays so they could enter from one side and leave from the other with horses. And it was originally a horse-drawn like firehouse, right? Or fire wagon. So like to me, that immediately became my question to like, how are you going to squeeze this down, and compress it into the space? And you did an amazing job.
Thank you. Well, my job in that sense, that is kind of like, that's the bread and butter for an art director or set designer is those kind of conundrums that you have to go like, right, this has to work. Not only like you can't just squash it all up. That's not going to work there. Right. You've got to do it. You've got to do it in a way that we nick a little bit out of each bay. So there's some pilasters all the way down. And I think in real life, they're 17 feet centers in real life, if I remember correctly, or 18 feet centers. And we took those centers down to like 15'6". So for every bay, we took like 2'6" out of each bay. So, and then over the stretch of that down to Venkman's office, that's 18 feet, 20 feet that we took out of the length there. And then we were lucky because Ivan, in the original movie, they placed Venkman's office at the stairs, and actually the length of the LA Firehouse that extends behind Venkman's office is like 46 feet something behind Venkman's office in reality, and we just bought that wall all the way up to the back of Venkman's office, which I think we got away with because we got away with we didn't do the arch window at the back.
Right.
Which you only see it very briefly when they first visit the firehouse, when they're having a look around the firehouse, and you can just see it in the back. There's an arch window on the very far back wall. And we chatted with Jason and Gil. Like, do you want this detail or not? If we don't have it, that's really good because what that means is we can just do a half wall because it then you've got the height of Venkman's office here, and you do a half wall behind, which is then on tackles. So we can take that away to light from behind to get the light in, because there's no windows in the set. So lighting it was a real that's another puzzle to solve as well. Like, how do we light the set? And so we took those bits out, but we are still longer than the LA Firehouse. I think our set was 105 feet, something like that. So we're just slightly further than the Firehouse. Oh no, it might be 115 feet. I think it was. We ended up making. The way that we did it on the stage was that we were able to extend it, and I would have made it slightly longer. But the other thing I had to take into consideration is how much space we have on the stage. So we knew we wanted to see Ecto 1 coming, roaring out of the firehouse as it always does, and you have to take into consideration, well, the turning circle on Ecto 1 is 60 feet. It's got a really massive turning circle, so I need 60 feet of space in front of the firehouse. Then I need a 4-foot fire lane, then my backings. So I have to, you have to work back from all of that to then give you a usable space on the stage, which just so happened to be just enough to fit the firehouse on. And it was pushed right up into the corner of the stage on the left-hand side, so you could get that sweep, and we could go and we built the street, all the tarmac and all the manhole covers and everything was all there. And it was all done from LiDAR scans of the New York street, all of that. So we had proper surveys done, and we recreated every bump in that road, every piece of tarmac that's flaking off, every curb that's chipped, every bit of paint that was chipped. I had photographic reference for every single piece of that, because I had to get a good match. You can't. The worst thing is when you're watching a movie and they do real location, then they go to a set that's supposed to be the location, and it doesn't match up. And I think obviously I'm biased, but I think we nailed it. I think it works pretty well, going from the real location to the set and the stage set.
I think that the big, having just been there like a couple weeks ago, I thought that ironically, like, the thing that is not accurate, that is the biggest and most obvious thing, has nothing to do with the firehouse. It has everything to do with the building made of glass across the street.
Oh yeah. Good story about that. We were going to build that. Because it's all I-beams and glass. So it's a relatively straightforward thing for us to recreate. But it's ugly as hell. So that's why we put that hoarding across the street, like a construction hoarding. Right. Because the idea is that it's always under construction. So when you see the 1903, is it, at the beginning, when it's a Victorian firehouse, the hoarding across the street is there in 1903 as well. And the joke is that it's constantly under construction, this building across the road, because we needed to hide it, basically. So when Venkman comes and he says, you need some help, and they open the door, they think it's Garaka, but they open the door and it's Venkman, and you can just see over his shoulder, and we've got the construction hoarding with, we do a bit of graffiti on there and some bill posters, and it worked really well. And it was such a simple fix. Yes. Because it was, we did that for, I don't know, £6,000 or £7,000, as opposed to the build cost of trying to recreate that building, which would have been 50,000, 60,000.
And then would have created how many more pains, just because now you'd have to deal with the fact that you're either going to have practical reflections, or you're going to have to deal with rendering CG reflections off of all that glass. And so that was when I looked at it and I said, why did they do this? And I went, oh wait, I know why. I was like, this is a lot cheaper than doing, this sort of mock-up of the first 2 floors of this entirely glass building. It is kind of funny though, that's a running joke now within the Ghostbusters series, that the building across the street, it's such a demilitarized zone in the neighborhood that they don't even bother to finish building anything.
yeah, totally. Well, because I went there actually a year ago tomorrow. They sent me out there because at one point we were going to hand over to the New York. We had a New York splinter unit that were doing all the shots of Ecto driving around and stuff, and there were going to be a few scenes at the firehouse where Lars turns up in his van and and Ray comes out. We ended up doing that on the stage, but at the time, I was sent out to New York to do kind of like a handover to the New York team, because they were going to do just like they did in '84. They were going to build a plug. So the up and over doors at Hook and Ladder, the red up and over doors, what they did in the original is they put them into the upper position, and then they got the LA doors. They built what we call a plug, and basically just plugged that hole, and then on the inside they'll do 16 feet of flattage with the tiles and the LA tiles and that, so that when someone opens the door, you just get a bit of the set. So I had to go over there and I had to actually measure up the front of the firehouse, and I was there with their construction team, and I got a great shot actually, and I think it fell on deaf ears, but the guy got I'm for the life of me I can't remember the guy's name, but he was with the construction team, and he went up the ladder to measure where the fascia, where the Hook and Ladder is. As I said, I need that measurement. That's one of the measurements I just want to check. He went up there with his tape. He was on the end of his ladder, and I said out loud, "You don't think it's too subtle, Marty? You don't think they're going to drive down and not see the sign?" And I'm like, no one got it. And I was like, "Oh, I am the only Ghostbuster fan." Okay.
Well, it's kind of funny. Like it is funny. Like if you're a Ghostbusters fan and you go there, you know, it's like it has a completely different vibe than if you're just looking at the firehouse's location, because it's, you know, it's
I'll tell you what,
something that matters to you.
I've never been starstruck by a building before. That was a weird thing, because I got there, I flew in, I was there for a day, right? And I did so much in a day. I basically did all the Ghostbuster sites. So I flew in on the Wednesday or whatever it was, and then I met up with the team on Thursday morning. We did what we needed to do, and we were done by sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then I was flying on the red eye going home. So I had the whole day in New York, and I thought, I'm just going to go to Dana Barrett's apartment, the Little Inn on the Green. I'm going to do all of the sites, and I did the whole thing. So I was chuffed to bits, really, because it's like a little dream come true. But like when I first got there, I was staying at a hotel in Tribeca, just up from the firehouse. And I thought, well, before I meet the team tomorrow, I'll just go, and I know it's only down the road, so I'll walk down and have a look at it. And I walked down the road, and it's weird, isn't it? Because you kind of, I know it's a big straight line, but it kind of, all of a sudden it sort of comes into view as you're walking towards it. And I was stopped in my tracks. I was just like, oh my God, there it is, the firehouse. And yesterday I've come from a stage in Reading where we're building this, you know, and it had already been built by this point. So I had all the the extra satisfaction of being able to show all the guys at Hook and Ladder, all the firefighters. I was saying, look, on my phone, like, this is what we've built, and this is, you know, and they're like, oh my God, you've even got the entrance sign, you know, where the faded paint, or where it says entrance. We did all of that and copied it even down to the CCTV cameras. We got the same ones, put them in the same position. Like if you look at the fascia of the building, there's things like, you know, old screw holes or eyelets or little things that no one really takes any notice of. I copied everything, every single little bit, every crack, even the color of each brick. I had a really good front on view, and I gave it to my painter, and I said, like, I just want, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want that kind of patina. It can't just be like granite, verbatim granite, there you go. It has to be like, well, that one's slightly darker than all the rest, and then that one's slightly lighter than all the rest. And we did, and I annoyed my painter massively trying to get it exactly right. But it's part of the fun of it, you know. It's really, it's a great thing to be involved with, and to be that close to that iconography is a real treat, and it's not something I ever really get to replicate in my job that often. So yeah, I was just blown away really with getting to work on Ghostbusters.
I guess this is a question that you've made me think of. How often does it happen in your career that you are tasked with having to figure out how to make the in-universe location match a real world one? Like, I was thinking about this, that like when you worked on Doctor Strange, I imagine that there wasn't a point where you had to sit around and go, okay, we got to make sure the Bleecker Street magician's house, like his, you know, the Santorum, whatever it's called, the Sanctum of, I can't remember what it's called, But like that's it. Thank you. I'm like, I don't. Like, there's not a point where you have to go take an actual physical location, right, and match it in the same way, because you get to invent that.
Well, with Sanctum Sanctorum, that is the exterior is a real building in New York.
Oh, see, now I feel stupid.
No, that's right. When we recreated, so on the stage here at this, I'm in Shepperton Studios right now, and I can see through the window the stage where we built that. J stage just over there.
Gotcha.
And what we did, we built the interior, the staircase, and the whole sanctum was it was a huge set, and it had many layers. And then right on the outside, for all the shots of Doctor Strange arriving and leaving the building, we have to recreate a little bit of the frontage of the building. So we did all this exactly the same. We go over to New York, we measure everything up, get all the color swatches, photograph the hell out of it, even down to the tree outside, and what season it is. And because it was autumn, we had a guy sticking autumnal leaves on a tree, to make it an autumn tree. Like for 2 weeks he was just sticking leaves on a tree outside the apartment. And in the film you never see that, but we did it, we built it, we put it there. You never know. Well, you do to a degree, that like how far they're going to need to come back, but you just never know what's going to make the edit. And I mean that's like same is true of Ghostbusters. I sit there and sort of wring my hands, thinking, oh God, have we got everything right? Have we done this? Have we done that? And you forget that most of the time they're shooting like here,
right?
And the firehouse is an out of focus thing behind them. It's not the star of the show in that sense. The actors are, but for me, the star of the show is what we've built and the building or the set.
I mean, at that point, too, the code name of the movie was Firehouse. So it kind of was like at a conceptual level. It was like, it's kind of the star of the movie because it's pretty much where everything's happening,
Yeah. It's funny as well because, I was trying to just going back to the thing of finding compromise and trying to work out how we do something. So with Callie and Gary's bedroom. So it's through that door where in the original movie it was their dormitory for the Ghostbusters originally. Now we didn't have the space on the stage to make it that deep. So the bedroom in the set is a lot smaller than the dormitory. And it's things like that. But also what you didn't have in the original movie was that you have to line everything up with the New York windows. Right. So the New York windows are spaced, I don't know, they're like 18 feet apart, something like that. I have to put that wall, it has to go there because it can't be in front of the window. It has to go behind it, because we're seeing that now. We're seeing the New York windows. So there's all of that to contend with. There's so many nuances in that sense. Like we were talking about, well, how do you stop on the fire pole? Because that 3-story fire pole, that's like 90 feet. It'll kill you. Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize this, that and not to sort of deviate from what you're talking about, but the original firehouse, the original, Engine 23 firehouse has a 3rd floor, but what's up there is, or was up there, was a chief's apartment, right? It was sort of like the chief's quarters. And there was an express fire pole, I think, that goes there's one that lands on the 2nd floor. Right. And there's one in his cupboard, or they're in his closet, that goes all the way down as an express fire pole down to the bottom floor. And you can totally correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I give you tons of forgiveness on the 3rd floor stairs, because when that was designed, it was designed as and considered the most opulent firehouse in all of Los Angeles, because it had an elevator that in the early 1900s that went to the 3rd floor. It wasn't there's a stairs that goes to the 3rd floor to the chief's apartment. No, there was an elevator that went up there, and then there was a service elevator on the back that let them put hay and grain for the horses up into a loft on the back of the firehouse. Right. So when I went, how do you get the 3rd floor? well, what are you going to use? You're going to use 100-year-old service elevator? Like you need some stairs, right? Yeah. But like, it is sort of weird to consider that like the firehouse has got this, I don't know, it's design wise, it's something where you have to juggle, like how do you take the current contemporary 21st century of what a Ghostbusters firehouse would be like while maintaining the old constraints that you have from the old building,
Yeah, totally. And again, like, we were talking, like even from the first floor to the ground floor, that's 19 feet.
Yeah.
From through the thing. That's a long way when you're stood up there and you've got your own height, which is like 5'10". So you're closer to, I don't know, like 25 feet when you're looking down the pole. It's not, going from the third floor, Jesus Christ.
And it's not like the Kenner firehouse. It doesn't spin around on a platform and then just stop, right?
Yeah. Well, because that was a thing in the script. They said, right, we want them to be able to stop in between floors. So my idea originally was to put like duck boards across the. So you got the metal railing that goes around the pole.
Yeah.
So in between floors, I was going to put these duck boards that sort of clipped around the pole, and then they sat inside the metal, so that they would slide down, hit the duck board, and then be able to step off. And then if they needed to go to the next floor down, they could take the duck boards off and then go down. And it was like a fix for that. But what it ended up being for safety, because they were real holes with real drops in them, ended up being like proper plugs with hazard tape on them, which served the purpose, I suppose. But it does throw up a little bit of confusion for people when they're like, oh, but I thought that went all the way through. It does, but there's a plug there. And
right.
It was not as obvious. The end result of what we did was not as obvious as a homemade fix, which we should have done, but it ended up being something a little bit different. But it's fine.
It's interesting you bring it up though, because like one of the things I keep seeing at a continuity and like a continuity pick that I see people making is they keep doing this pick of like, well, they cut the fire pole so that way Phoebe could brass cast her parts, and they use the fire pole, but then we see Kumail sliding down the fire pole covered in a brass thing. So how does that work? And it's like, because there's a bunch of fire poles in that firehouse, and some of them go all the way to the roof, and some of them don't.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I tell you, that was a really hard part of my job. And I've got to say, the art director who took over this set from me, he did the second and third floor. A guy called Tom Weaving, and he had to contend with how do we now, because we'd already installed the fire poles at this point, and they were saying we want to cut the fire pole, and we were like, you can't cut the fire pole because it's installed. In order to get that out, now you've got to rip the set apart because you can't physically get it out.
Right.
That's got to stay in until we strike the set. So we had to build like a dummy pole for that scene where she's cutting into it, which was just set off slightly from where the actual real pole was. And, it's all those little things like requests or script changes that suddenly like throw everything, and everyone's panicking like, oh, how are we going to do this? And, and that keeps the momentum going in the art department, I suppose. But there's lots of things like that. Like I really wanted them to use, so in the 1903 scene, I wanted there to be a bell, ringing the bell for the fire guys to get on the horses and go. And then because I sort of pitched this to my boss. I said, well, why don't we do if we do an establishing shot of like a hook and ladder bell, a brass bell in the firehouse, and then when Trevor's in the loft and we're doing all the Easter eggs of the sign and the Ghostbusters 2 merch and all of that, you could have the bell from 1903 could be up in the attic. And then when they say there's no brass left in the house, but we found this in the loft. And then, it didn't fly. They didn't go with it. They just wanted to cut the pole. But I thought that was
It would have.
better.
It would have been kind of cool though. Like, yeah, I agree. It would have sort of tied the history of the firehouse in the beginning of the movie.
It would have saved me. It would have saved us a job of farting around with the poles. But yeah,
you would have pushed something to somebody else and gone, "Okay, cool. It's your job now to go find a bell."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was great, and like. I keep saying the iconography of it, but it really is like, you get to see Ray's occult and you walk around Ray's occult, or you go into the basement set, and it was just magical for me as like a fan anyway. And then like we had Jason and Gil came, because we may know this or not, that we shot in 2 separate studios. So there's Winnersh Studios and then there was Shinfield Studios. Well, I was at Shinfield, which is about 10-minute drive up the road from Winnersh. So we had the first and second floor at Winnersh, and then the ground floor and the exterior, and Razor Cult at Shinfield.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they were in 2 different locations.
Yeah, no, they're two completely separate sets, and the reason we do that as well is because, well, for one, we couldn't really do a 3-story set. We don't have the space at the height of the stage, and then also it's all to do with like availability of stages. So we will work out early on like how big a set's going to be, and then we sort of, with the stages we've got to sort of work out, okay, well, if we build this one here and we shoot it then we strike that and we can build this one. And then while we're building this one, we're shooting that one. And then when we strike out of there, we can and it's all that moving around stuff. So that's the only reason why it ended up being the way it was. And the first block of filming was all at Winnersh, and the directors and the producers could never get over to Shinfield to see what we were doing with the firehouse. And then I got wind that Jason and Gil were going to come over, and we literally had just finished building, and we got the Ghostbusters sign up and we got the lights on, and it was like the first time that I'd seen it completely finished. I mean, there was some like stuff to do, but anyway, Gil and Jason turned up, and that was a magical moment because Jason was over the moon. He was so happy with what we'd done, and you could see he was getting like very emotional being in the firehouse and thinking about his dad and thinking about the original Ghostbusters. And he was just so thankful to everyone and everyone's work that had been put in. And that was a really nice moment for me because I was just I'm in the shadows at that point, just kind of like,
right.
This is great. I'm really, this is the reason we did it. And if he loves it, then he's done a good job. So, yeah,
is that around the same time that first image kind of showed up of like them standing around with the tile wall and that the eye tile kind of leak happened?
That was the first time they came over. So we'd literally just done that. That was all that what there was that bit of tiled wall because we did it as a sample. So we did that one small area, and at that point we weren't shooting. So they came over and had a look, and then they got into the shooting side of things, and then they didn't see any of the process. They just saw it from there, and then they saw it completely finished, and it was great. And then I've got to tell you the story that when so I got a phone call from a friend who said, "Oh, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd are coming over to see the set," and I went, "What? Really?" Because they weren't filming, and they arrived. I think they were doing a costume fitting. And as he said that, I looked up and I looked into the main stage door, and they were both stood in the doorway. And unmistakably Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. And I dropped my face because this is the first time I'd seen them as well. I was like, oh my god! And I was like, honestly, it was just like. And he came out, Bill and Gil was with them, and Gil, I basically I let Gil sort of do the tour of the set with them, and they're like, wow, it's amazing, done such a great job. And then Gil very graciously introduced me to Bill and Dan, and Bill's shook my hand and he said, it's just like it was in '84. So then I was like, yeah. That's it. Perfect. I'm happy with that.
Even has his schnapps inside. Like it's just.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'll tell you what's great as well, working on a Ghostbusters movie, Ghost Corps give you a ring binder, or they give you a book of everything to do with Ghostbusters lore. So you can use that as your reference guide for everything. But everything that's ever been mentioned, any names, cleared names, product names, blah, 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 blah. It's all in there. So you can just kind of fish out things. And the peach schnapps thing was, that was a nice touch. I like that. And we did the original picture that's behind Bill's desk, Venkman's desk. That is actually a picture of, well, you probably know anyway, but it is a real picture of the LA Firehouse in 1917 or something like that. So, and we found that picture. We got the license for it. We got it because I said, you got to have that up. It's got to, it's such a iconic set. Because there was a time in pre-production where they weren't going to use or utilize Venkman's office. They were just going to put storage boxes in there and say, like, the guys have moved in and this is where they're storing all their stuff. And I was like, yeah, but you got to dress it like, it's got to be like Bill's or Venkman's office. He's got to be, because that's what the fans are going to want to see. They're going to want, that's the iconic thing. You want to, even though he's 73 or whatever, you still in your head want him to jump over the the little door, and I attempted that at 40 and I couldn't make it. So
it's sort of like, to me, I think about it as like all versions of the Batcave require a turntable that turns the Batmobile, right? Like if you don't have that in the Batcave, is it really the Batcave? Like,
there you go. Exactly. And, our set decorator, Mike Standish, he did it. He was great. I could go and speak to him and say, like, it'd be really great if you could get these props for this scene or whatever. And, we put loads of Easter eggs everywhere. And, we've even got Blues Brothers hats and glasses in Razor Cult on one of the mannequins. There's all things like that. If you really like sit and watch it, it's like
I think
stuff like
one of the funniest things about this movie that you all managed to pull off in terms of set decoration, is that you've made Crystal Head vodka canon.
Well, it was written into the contract, I think. Every crew member got a little Crystal Head vodka signed by Dan as well. So it was
that's
quite
great.
Nice.
But yeah, the first time I saw it on screen, I was like, they not only did they make Kenner toys something that now is in universe, like the actual toys I collect are an in universe thing, but so is Crystal Head vodka. I don't know who owns it in that universe. I don't know if Dan Aykroyd exists in the Ghostbusters universe and he owns Crystal Head vodka.
Yeah. Well, that's meta, isn't it? Very much. Yeah. Very cool.
It's funny. Like, I wanted to ask you this, so sort of a meta question. Do you know at what point Raise a Cult moved? Because like Raise a Cult's address is now 201 St. Mark's Place, which is not a real address. Like that address does not exist. And clearly like Raise a Cult as it's designed now I don't know that we see the exterior of it in the movie. I can't remember, but like if we actually get a good exterior shot, I know I've seen it in social media, but
you see them walking, one of the customers walking into it, I think. So,
okay, yeah.
But it was based on the original location, which I think is a Chinese restaurant now.
It's actually, I was just there, and I can tell you exactly what it was. It is it's an out of business Vietnamese iced tea shop. Like,
oh, there you go. Yeah.
Currently vacant, but 33 and a half or whatever it is, or 33 St. Mark's Places, got like 4 or 5 different businesses in it and a flight of stairs that goes up, and the entire front of the building has been redesigned since it was in '89. So it was kind of like, when you look at the artwork they've got for t-shirts out, though, the address that's on there now is fundamentally a different address than the original. The original address is like 33 St. Mark's Place. And now the t-shirt, the mug that's out or whatever, the different stuff says 201 St. Mark's Place. And the fun fact is St. Mark's Place ends at 1:30. Like there is no 201 St. Mark's Place in real life. So that's what made me wonder, like, how much did you all try to go back and match up Raise a Cult to the original '89 movie, or was there more of a flexibility on that set?
Well, we definitely tried to match it from the interior point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, the columns and the moldings and all of that. I think we made it slightly bigger just because we needed a space for podcasts, table, and for them to do the podcast.
Right.
So we made, I think it's not a lot, we didn't make it that much bigger, but the stage at the back is that there's a raised area at the back, which we made, I think maybe like 4 or 6 feet wider. So the whole shop is about 4 to 6 feet wider. But that, aside from that, it was pretty much all based on the photo reference from Ghostbusters 2.
Gotcha.
And then also to fit into the location exterior again,
right,
because we've never seen the two together. That's, you know.
And that's a good point too, because it's like when you look at Ghostbusters 2, you get an exterior of Raise the Cult as a street shot on 33 St. Mark's Place next to the Manic Panic headquarters at the time. And then you kind of go inside of it, and it's obviously you're not inside that space. It's a set, you know. So it made me wonder though if that was something that there was more flexibility with that set, or if it was sort of an in canon or in universe explanation of like that they had moved, you know. And I admittedly didn't pay that much attention to the interior.
With the dresses and things like that, what generally how that happens is that it will be lifted from the script. So there will always be like stage direction in the script,
right?
And it will say, like, rather than it say Raise a Cult, it will say exterior 1203 or whatever you said it was, St. Mark's Place or something. And the graphic designer will take that, put that on the thing. So I expect something like that has happened where that's maybe slipped through the net in terms of, you know, because these things do happen. So
it's fine. The canon explanation is it's the result of a dimensional cross rip that suddenly shifted. It just shifted all the addresses by about 170 digits. That's it's an after effect of Garaka. Is that all the entire street needed to be renumbered? That's The Statue of Liberty accidentally stepped on several buildings in that area during 1989, so they had to renumber the block.
There you go, exactly that. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things. But it's funny because like you can. I'm although I am, you know, in charge of the firehouse, I'm not in charge of everything.
Right.
So there are sets being designed, and I don't think that people will mind me saying this, but there's sets being designed by art directors who haven't even seen the first Ghostbusters movie.
Right.
So, and that is always, you know, kind of, it's a bit like when I worked on Marvel films. I know nothing about Marvel comics. I'm more of a DC guy. Loved Batman and all that growing up. Never really got into Marvel. Ended up doing seven Marvel films.
Right.
And my brother-in-law, who is massively into Marvel, would always say to me around the dinner table at family dinners, he'd find out I was working on Endgame or Infinity War or whatever, and he'd be like, "Oh, are they doing the blah 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 blah?" And I'd have to, I don't know what you're talking about, Chris. I just don't know what you're. I have no idea what you're talking about, and you forget that like not everyone is bang into it as much as you are. So it's kind of like, and you kind of have to not to be a jerk about the fact that you got that wrong. You know, you kind of have to work with it and kind of like, you know, massage the. Oh, it'd be better if it was like this because in Ghostbusters 1, you know, they did and they go, oh, okay, fine. So it was you're always up against stuff like that, but it's funny when you know there are people in the world that haven't seen Ghostbusters. I think, you know, that's sacrilegious.
You know, like we've talked a bunch about the fact that you've had to sort of hold consistency to these expectations of like buildings in the real world and different fan expectations of what the firehouse should look like and where the stairs go and stuff. So I guess this is a question I think is kind of fun to consider. Was it in a way like liberating for you to be able to work on spaces that we've never seen? Like the attic, for instance, right? Like that's a space that like, I imagine you had to have a little bit more free reign on because we've never seen it. Well,
it's funny. I was I have to say there was another art director for that called Ben Telford who did the attic, which again was in another location. So that's why I wasn't involved with it. But the weird thing with the attic is because we have to, like, the mullions on the window at Hook and Ladder. So you've got that top window which has the arch on it. So that mullion, which is only 7 inches thick, it's mad that I can remember all the measurements. The mullion that's 7 inches thick, that's on the inside. That's got to hold a subfloor for the attic, and in real life, that space is going to be 18 inches thick.
Right.
So there's a lot of cheating going on in that sense. So we thought, well, if we put the floor level there, then you get the arch. Which works well. But in reality, when you are on that level, you've only got about 6 feet of head height from there to the real roof.
Right.
And we ended up making that attic room was 9 feet tall. So it's like an extra floor rather than an attic space. But it was that was one of the nice things, because it was like, okay, well, we've never been up here. We're saying it's an attic. It's stripped back to the brick. It's got there's a storage area that we did the window, Slimer's nest, which was really fun to do and to see. I think the idea of that extra floor, I think it works pretty well, considering in real life it doesn't. You would never get another space up there. So
no.
It's nice to see. It's nice to think that we've added some real estate to any potential future, if it's in the future movies or TV shows or cartoons, whatever they're going to do in the future, they can have that as a space as well. So,
and to be real, I think that part of what is amazing about what you've accomplished with the Firehouse, not to be like, let me throw more accolades on you because you did a great job, but standing outside Hook and Ladder 8 a few weeks ago, I'm in New York City at the premiere, and I'm like screwing around outside the Firehouse for the 2 days beforehand, meeting people, hanging out. And we've only ever seen the 2 floors. Like, we'd never seen a 3rd floor in Ghostbusters at all. Like, we knew conceptually that those of us who know how the Firehouse works, like inside, knew there was a 3rd floor, but we've never really seen them go up there. So when you stood outside of Hook and Ladder 8 and you put the mental map of every version of the Firehouse that other than, say, the Kenner one and the Playmobil one, which each have some sort of weird 3rd floor to them, some 3rd floor area that's not at all consistent with a movie or a cartoon. It's just a toy. But if you think about all the other models that exist within video games, within animated stuff, within anything, the 3rd floor was never something we actually saw depicted to us. So if you were to look at the building from the outside, it must have meant that the ceilings were like 15 feet tall on each floor, right? Because from the outside, and that to me was like a huge problem of how do you resolve that? And I think that that's what you all did so well with the way you designed the 3 floors of the residential and sort of working space of the Firehouse, is that it actually lines up now such that when you stand outside of Hook and Ladder 8, you have a functional working model of how the inside of the Firehouse works. Even if it's not the one that was on screen in 84 and isn't true to Engine 23, it is a far more functional working model for a set.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing that the ceiling heights, right, was in the New York one, they're so high, they're like 17 feet in reality. And on the stage, we don't have the height to do 2 17-foot stacks on top of each other. So I had to bring that down to 15 feet. But then you've got the problem of the windows on that set have to also shrink, but they have to shrink. You can't just take 2 feet off the top of it because then it's squat, so you have to proportionally shrink everything. And then, you've got the director saying, I want to do this shot where we come up from the street and we go up to our set, but we start in New York on the real one, we go up and then we're in the set. And you got to tell him, well, the windows don't match though, because the windows in the set are a lot smaller than they are in real life. What do you mean? So it's all of that kind of playing around with. We call it cheating all the time. You always you can shift something, you can move a wall a few feet, or you can make the door a bit smaller. But even at 15 feet high, they're still incredibly tall ceilings. And the way that I was able to sort of make them feel shorter was introduce a dado rail at 12 foot, so that if you're shooting and you just catch an edge of that dado rail, your mind thinks that that's the edge of the ceiling. So it feels smaller than it is. And there's all these little sort of tricks like that you can do. But just talking about like the rest of the geography of the firehouse. So that third floor or second floor that we call it, when you go up from the first floor, the living area, up that staircase that we've added. So you get to the top of that staircase, and in front of you there's another door. That's the dark room from Ghostbusters 2.
Right.
So I put that in, but we never shot it. We never see it, but it is verbatim the dark room from Ghostbusters 2. And then to the side of that, there's a lab, which in Ghostbusters 2 is where they're talking to the slime with the swimming cap on. So that's there. Then Trevor and Phoebe's bedrooms, if you see in the film, you'll notice in the film that the walls to their bedrooms are stud walls, so that it's as though they've been, since the original Ghostbusters, someone has come in and put this dividing wall in,
right,
again on the mullion of the window. Hence why Trevor's room is like 8 feet wide and Phoebe's is 20 feet wide. Because you had to split it on the mullion. And the idea is that it's over time, people have moved in, people have moved out, things have happened, the walls have shifted around, and that's why they're kind of they have a different feel to them. But essentially, that layout is what we see in the movie. And what I'm working on at the moment is, how do we go from ground floor being 115 feet to our top levels at the moment being only 80 feet long. So I know you're not recording visuals here, but I'm trying to show you on the webcam. So the idea is that there is a bit on the back of the firehouse that you can't see, which I've invented.
I've seen this. I saw the pictures you have of this, where essentially, like, if you were to take the firehouse like a rectangle, the first floor would stick out of the back of it, right? It's still by like several feet because it's the garage bay is longer than the residential space. And that's like the cheat.
In reality, it would be going into that dry cleaners that's on the end. So right. I'm using the dry cleaners further up the street to be able to do this. But I'd love to show you at some point. I'd like to, for Ghostbusters Day, I'm going to try and finish the model because at the way that this all happened, that all the models I've done are all separate models. So I'm actually at the moment I'm compositing everything together and making it all fit as one big model. So it'd be nice to do a cut through to show everyone verbatim. I keep saying verbatim, but to show everyone exactly what the layout of the firehouse is floor by floor. I think that'd be something that everyone would like to see for the 40th anniversary. And I'm talking to Ghost Corps about hopefully putting something out, not necessarily a print or anything like that, but just to on my social media, just to show everyone, because I think it would settle a lot of talk about because I've got one guy that keeps messaging me saying, but why did you do everything back to front? I'm like, it's not back to front.
I'm so sorry.
But he's relentless. He just keeps messaging me, and I keep saying to him, in the original movie, Ray runs camera right, he comes down that pole, but then when he's downstairs, he comes down the pole that's on camera left,
right?
Because Ivan crossed the line without realizing. So that's what's happened. So it's not been flipped. That's how it is. That's correct to the LA Firehouse, but he still won't believe me. But it's funny as well. I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about the chief's apartments up above with all that lovely paneling. So I took that paneling into the bedroom set.
Oh, nice.
So all of the paneling that's in there is the same.
That's cool.
And even down to the anaglypta paper that's in between the panels. we copied that as well. So there's all those details. I'm always looking for like the detail in everything and trying to take it that one step further and get the grain right on the wood. That was the other thing, like Venkman's office. If you watch Ghostbusters 2, that one scene where Janine's putting her computer away, she's putting the cover on the computer, and you can see Venkman's office in the background. You can see that they cobbled that together so quickly, and it's purple. It's like the wrong fucking color. I don't. And so that was really important. Like I had to get the same graining as the '84 version, and like I'll tell you a great story. Actually, I think it was through Eric Reich, but I was able to get hold of the original drawings from Ghostbusters 1, which still exist, and they're falling apart, and they were like brown, that sepiaed, aged things, and apparently they've just been in a drawer at Ghost Corps for years, and someone just found them recently, and they were like, "Oh, would these come in handy?" Yes, please. So the columns, the green columns, they're actually Warner Brothers props. They were just hires, and they added some of the decoration to those. And there's a note on the drawing saying, on the original drawing, that says, "Do not alter the columns." And what they had to do was they had to put a new cap on it so that it was tall enough to touch the ceiling. So they ended up altering them, and then there's a big note on there with they get being told off by the prop department when they returned them because they altered them so much, and all those little things. And then you look at it's funny because doing what I do, I sort of sit there and I go through the original film almost like scene by scene or even like frame by frame. And there's so many things where you can see like wedges holding things up, and like there's a column next to the staircase which they added in. So I'm not entirely sure why they put it there, but they added a column into the original set. And if you watch the bit where Venkman and Ray come back off a job, and Winston's being interviewed, and he turns around, the bit where he says like, "Oh, beautiful, you're hired," and he hands him the traps. You can see underneath the column that it's held up by little wooden wedges to keep it, like, to stop it from falling over. So there's all like little things like that, which I love about Ghostbusters, and you pick up all this stuff and you think, oh well, it's okay if it's slightly different, or if it's but in terms of what we did, I think I'd like to see if they go forward with another movie, then I would like them to use keep it as it is now, and like it, because we have like really worked out the whole geography of the building. So it'd be good to see what they do next. You never know. Hopefully they make another one, then I can get involved, because I don't really want to do anything else now.
If you have the opportunity to work on another Ghostbusters movie, if it comes along and they do another one and they say, "Luke, you did such an amazing job with the Firehouse, come on back." What would your aspirations be for either continuing on this set in terms of its development, or what's another Ghostbusters set that you would think you would really like to work on?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I'll tell you what, we never really saw what's behind the wall of the containment unit. So the containment unit behind the breeze block wall is actually, without giving too much away, is massive. And there's a whole nother room behind there, like a plant room full of, computers and bits and bobs that we never saw. And there's another room in the basement that goes off, which is, I would like to think was Egon's little place where he would go and draw up ghost busting traps and bits and bobs. So there's more areas in the Firehouse that we haven't seen that can be explored in that sense. But I think if I was going to do another movie, I would like to see Vigo's art gallery, you know, or like to see, something from the original ones that we could do some new take on. It's you've put me on the spot, man.
Sorry.
That's right. I think like old New York is like, you know, is ripe for some ghost stuff, you know, down in the sewers. What happened to the River of Slime? Is it still there? You know, like, you know, there's a lot of slime. Where did it go? Like,
right.
I'd love to see the transit system and all through there and re-explore some of that stuff and, you know, the underground or even Empire State, you know, harking back to sort of King Kong-esque type of thing, you know. Stay Puft come back, big Stay Puft, that would be fun, you know, because we've got the mini puffs now. So why don't they all, like, a bit like Terminator 2, you know, all conglomerate together and create the original Stay Puft? That would be quite fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset that we could even just go to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Factory at this point after the end of the movie. Like that's, I'm like, let's go there. I want that as a practical set. As the
what their share price is. Stay Puft
yeah, it seems like that company. You know, imagine that the Pillsbury people would probably have some issues if the Doughboy kept coming to life and destroying things or stealing trucks or anything else that's going on. You know, if your brand mascot goes rogue, you got an issue. But.
But I do think, you know, seriously speaking, I think Ghostbusters has potential to be like, it's an awesome franchise, and it has, with the new, like McKenna's amazing. I love the fact they've got Paul Rudd in there as well. You know, he gives off Venkman vibes, which is great, you know, and I know the OGs, everyone wants to see the OGs, but they're, you know, unfortunately they are getting old, quite old now. And as much as I want to see them in future releases, I really think, you know, exploring the character arc of Callie and Gary and Trevor and Phoebe and Lucky and Podcast, you know, I think that's a really good ensemble, and I would really be excited to really see more of that, and to you know, it's almost a bit like, you know, when they redid Star Wars and stuff, and there were so many people wanted to see it, and it was very exciting and all the rest of it, and it kind of, for me, it fell flat a little bit, but I really think the dynamic of those actors together is like fantastic. I'd love to see more of them, and I think it would be really popular, because like my kids love Ghostbusters now, you know, and it's like it's one of the joyous things I get to share with my son, especially because he absolutely loves Ghostbusters, like, you know, as much as I did as a kid, and not just because I worked on the films. I bought them the Playmobil Ghostbusters Firehouse like 4 years ago, you know, and it's like
that's your first reference model, right?
Yeah. And it's great, you know. I just I honestly think as a franchise, it's got so much potential. I just really hope that they can continue with the momentum and get another one going. And I just love it. It's great, and it feels like it's going to sound like a cliche. There was a real family vibe on it. Like, you can go on most films, most jobs you do, and you can get stuck in the office, you know, drawing or whatever, and they you know, like the Marvel things, you know, they'd say, Chris Hemsworth's in today or whatever, and I'd be like, no, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me seeing them. You know, you see them once and you kind of go, whatever. But this every day was a joy, and every single person that worked on Ghostbusters were there because they loved Ghostbusters. I know I said earlier there were people that hadn't seen the film, but the majority of people were, you know,
right, my
age and above. Everyone was there because it's Ghostbusters. It's amazing. This is going to be so much fun, and it really was, and it was such a joyous thing to be involved with. Every day you get to see Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. Like my birthday last year, we were shooting the Garaka, the final scene, the Garaka fight at the end, and it was my birthday, and Gil came up and said, is it your birthday today? Because his assistant had told him, and I was like, oh yeah, it's my birthday. He said, oh, we got to get you in the film. You should be in the film. And I was like, oh yeah. I said, that would be amazing. I mean, I'd love to do that. And then literally 20 minutes later, I got a call from wardrobe. They said, can you come in for a fitting for tomorrow? Are you going to be in the crowd for the end scene? And I was like, oh my God. And we shot 2 days on the stage where I'm in the crowd. And then you can see me if you watch the film. I'm in the back when they're doing the TV interviews. I'm sort of doing this in the background. But I'm there and I'm high-fiving them as they're coming out of the firehouse. And like my inner child on that day was just like, oh my God, how is life? Like, how have the planets aligned for me on this? Because there's just no other. This is equivalent to winning a lottery or like, that kind of like, this never happens to me. And I'm high-fiving Bill and Dan as they're coming out of the thing. And then there's a cut scene with Winston and Ray talking at the end of the movie. And they're looking at the firehouse and surveying the damage to the firehouse, and they're chatting to each other. And I'm stood next to Dan Aykroyd in the scene. And they cut it out, and I was like, no.
So this is where
that turns up on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, we're waiting for that on the Blu-ray, or if not for this Blu-ray, then on the 50th anniversary, it comes in a containment unit box set Blu-ray set. Great.
But it's what dreams are made of, man, and it just really was. I'm probably bored of me saying it, but I just absolutely loved it, and. I'm so pleased with how it turned out, and everyone was so happy. And it just never happens like that. It never, there's always something that, either, it's like other jobs are enjoyable for certain reasons or whatever, or you meet someone who you click with and you have a laugh and it's fun or whatever. But this was literally, day to day, I'm going into work and I'm putting on a flight suit, or I'm driving Ecto 1.
Right.
The front guy let me reverse Ecto 1 into the firehouse, like what? And let me tell you, that thing is a beast power wise. I was like, whoa! It's got like 2 V8s in it. But it was incredible thing to be involved with, and I'm pleased that it's been well received as well. So.
Kevin Mangold was with us last week and joined us, talking about his experiences working on the film of Slimer, and he sort of indicated the same thing, sort of that it was a very warm set where people were, everybody there wanted to be there and was sort of working together collaboratively. And what I thought was so fascinating about that was that as you all were doing that, Hollywood was melting down. It was like the most stressful time in the industry in decades, and you all were off having fun making a movie.
Well, they were trying to get it finished before the writers' strike kicked in, because they were like, we've got to finish it before the strike. So it was like everything shifted that last few weeks, and it all kind of like moved around, and like that, because they were originally, the Splinter unit was going to be a lot bigger in New York,
right? And
they had to cut it right down because of the writers' strike. They could only have they couldn't have any writers or directors on that Splinter unit. It was all done with an AD and a camera. I think they shot 2 days, or 2 or 3 days.
And then your actors go on strike after that. So it was sort of this crazy thing to consider, that you all were running against the deadlines and the constraints happening because of a series of labor movements that were very stressful and shut down the industry for months. And despite that, everybody who's come off the picture is like, it was such a great experience and so nice and so fun. And everyone was so laid back, and Gil's such a great person, and Jason's such a great person. Eric Reich is such a great person. And it's so interesting to me that like everyone who was on the picture doesn't represent that stress, if that makes sense. Who I've talked to so far. So. Yeah, no, it was a joy. It really was. And I'm spoiled now, that's peak career. I've got to really try hard to enjoy this new project, because like I said, I should get a t-shirt made up that just says, well, it's not Ghostbusters, so it's all right, but it's not Ghostbusters, I think that should be my motto.
so.
I'm so glad you got to work on this picture, though, and we were lucky enough to have somebody who came in with such a strong, desire to get it right. And I thank you for it, because I think that, there's a lot of folks. There's a lot of folks who could have come in and said, okay, what are we doing? We're building a bat cave. It's an empty building. It's they gutted it. They sold it. It was a Starbucks. So we could do whatever we want as long as it's a rectangle. And that's.
Yeah. Oh, well, I did see I saw the set plans for the 2016 Ghostbusters. And I've got to say I wasn't impressed, because I've not seen the film. I've not ever bothered to watch that film, but I saw the set plans for the Firehouse in that, and I was like, what? So I'm glad we've salvaged it, or snatched it from the jaws of defeat, as it were. And,
I mean, whether you like that movie or not, I think that what you have all set up in terms of a Firehouse set that works practically for the future is amazing. One thing I want to just make sure we touch on before we wrap up, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. You've been putting out so much great content for people to take a look at over on Instagram, over on your account, which for folks, I've been talking about this for weeks, but if you haven't seen this already, you got to go over to Whitelock_design_limited. And one of the things you've been posting there is all of your design drawings, all the stuff that you've pulled out. How is transitioning from, say, working on pen and paper towards digital been instrumental in this process? Like, it's very clear from what you're putting out there that you have a lot of experience using things like SketchUp. You're talking about layout. You have classes that you offer for people who are beginners and asset packs and things. Like, how has that enabled you to be able to do something like, hey, I need a Firehouse in 3 weeks?
Well, to be fair, I used to, like, when I started out, I was 100% drawing on the board, and I had no interest in computer modeling or CAD. But as as the industry progresses, you either you adapt or you die, sort of thing. So I ended up getting in with SketchUp about 15 years ago, something like that, and tentatively using it for, like, I was doing commercials, so it was very like basic sets, and it lended itself very well to that kind of style of commercial set builds. And just over time, I think Thor was it Thor? Yeah, Thor 2. That was the last time I did any pencil drawings. That was 2012. And I towards the end of that, I was sort of transitioning over to more and more into SketchUp. And then we went straight from Thor to The Dark World into pre-production on Guardians of the Galaxy. And I just said to myself at the beginning of that job, I'm going to try and do everything in SketchUp on this and just see how I get along with it. And it was like a baptism of fire, because, you kind of, on the one hand, you're trying to teach yourself this new skill, and on the other hand, you've got time constraints, and we need this now, and you're, playing around with a 3D model and not really knowing how you're going to get a drawing out of it. And I think over time, it just became a natural fit for me, because SketchUp is a really great 3D program. If anyone out there is into like 3D modeling, even from like a hobbyist point of view. So like if you wanted to design your own ghost trap and 3D print it, SketchUp is perfect for that. You could go into it very quickly, pick up the tools, and design something that you could then either make a drawing of or 3D print, or you can take the line work from a drawing, turn it into take it into Photoshop and paint over it. Right. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. It's really a fun and interesting program to use, because I think a lot of the other CAD programs and 3D programs like AutoCAD, Vectorworks, they all have their place. But I find them very clinical and very boring to they have a really boring interface, and those sort of CAD programs are designed for NASA engineers, when you're doing something to the thousandth of a millimeter.
Right.
I don't need to be worrying about that kind of level of detail in set design, because most of the time, if I gave a carpenter a drawing when it said the window is 4'6" and 1/8 wide, there's no way they're doing the 1/8 on it. They're going to just round up 4'6", You know, so it's like, you know, and I love that. I love that it's really like you can start off really blocky, and you can just make some basic shapes, and then it's a bit like sculpture. You just kind of keep working on it, keep adding detail, and before you know it, you've got a firehouse, or you've got the pod from Avengers, or you've got Cruella's house. You know, it's all, and it really lends itself to like architectural forms. It's not very good with organic stuff, but certainly architectural stuff. And then, you know, and I'm trying with my courses. They're there for people who originally I did it for set designers who wanted to transition from pencil, because there's still lots of people that draw on the board, and it was to get them to transition over to 3D modeling. But then I realized actually anyone that's interested in 3D modeling, whether you're an architect, an interior designer, a hobbyist, you know, I've got beginners courses, I've got more advanced classes, and they're, for what they are, they're probably the cheapest courses that I've seen, you know, professional courses I've seen out there. They're all broken up into episodes, like 1 hour long episodes. So it really lends itself to anyone that wants to do 3D modeling. So like I said, hobbyists, interior designers, any of those sort of guys, you can come on, do one of my courses, and essentially the beginner's class and the master class, if you took them together, you'll have my entire skill set and workflow mapped out. I'll explain it from opening the box for the first time to getting the drawings out all the way through. So, and then you just basically copy paste that to whatever project you want to work on. If you wanted to do a proton pack, or if you wanted to do a trap, or design your own Ghostbusters thing, you know, go check it out. So there's lots of info there, or even just go and sign up on my website. It's whitelockdesignlimited.com. You can sign up for the newsletter there, and I post exclusive content and blogs and stuff about things I'm working on, if you're interested in that too. So
if you want to know more about how to build sets or build architectural designs and things, and you want to know it from a person who built the Ghostbusters Firehouse, it's a one-stop shop, everybody. Yeah, and then who knows? One day, might be able to do a course on building your own firehouse. There you go. That'll be a fun one. We didn't get into it because I know we're running out of time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. But at some point, we're gonna have to have you come back on and just do a tutorial on how to correctly age Victorian tiles.
Oh yeah, Vaseline. That's how you do it.
Vaseline, and I read your post. It was Vaseline and hammers. That's like, I love this.
That's it, exactly that. If you stick around after we finish, I'll share my screen with you, and I can show you what I'm doing with the firehouse, just to give you a little exclusive.
I would love to.
Like.
And I think it's so great that like the fact that you've been working in SketchUp means that you still have this model, right? It's something where it's something you can continue to extend on and work on, which is so cool about digital production and the tools that you're using. And so I just want to say to folks, like, if you haven't gone and looked at Luke's stuff, if you haven't looked at the sort of videos where he's going through like diary level, day by day, like sort of this is what we were doing in designing the firehouse, it's so much more detailed than we could probably even put into an hour and a half conversation. But I want to tell people to go take a look at it for sure. And I'm so appreciative, Luke, of you making the time on an 8-hour time difference in a completely different country to make the time to talk with us.
No worries.
I really appreciate it. So.
No, anytime. And if you want to have me back in the future, if we could maybe do something where we do some video, and I can give you a full tour of the firehouse.
That would be great.
Via the thing.
That's definitely what we should do. So, okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for coming on, Luke. We appreciate it. And we hope to talk to you again soon. That about wraps things up for Extraplasm this week. I want to say one final thank you to Luke Whitelock for coming on the show and joining us and being so generous with his time. It was really awesome of him to stay at work incredibly late, essentially to talk with us and let us know about experiences he had. I hope that we can have Luke back again and talk with him more about the firehouse, and maybe even do, like we were talking about, a video where we can kind of lead people through the firehouse model that he's built. That would be really cool. I also want to say thank you as usual to Brendan Pierce of Beducci Studios, who provides our logo, as well as vaporwave artist Magnavox, whose version of Ghostbusters serves as our theme music each week. And of course, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening this week and every week. Everybody who has contributed over the last few months, especially as we've been excited about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire with their thoughts, their ideas, things they want to share, has been awesome. And I've been so excited to hear from folks. And it was almost weird to take a week off last week because I didn't hear from as many people. And I was like, I wonder where everybody is. So if you have something you want to share with the podcast, feel free to reach out. Extraplasm on Instagram, on X, extraplasompodcast@gmail.com if you're into the email thing. And of course, you can find Extraplasm Podcast over on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week with another guest from a Ghostbusters Frozen Empire set. And as Ernie Hudson says every week,
Try to have fun and always keep on busting. Take care.